Hello, and welcome to another edition of A Conversation with Father Orsi. I'm B.C. Cloutier, President of Action for Life, and this is Father Michael Orsi. Hello, Father.
Hey, how are we doing?
Doing great. How are you doing?
Yeah.
We're going to talk about suicide today, and that's probably not a good thing to talk about, but it's something that caught my attention for this very reason. In 2022, in America, 50,000 people committed suicide.
A lot of suicides.
Now, the demographic is not what I assumed when I saw the headline, which is young people. It's not. It's generally men 75 and older. But young people, we know, are dying from fentanyl. Unfortunately, many people are using fentanyl as a means of suicide, along with firearms, obviously.
Right.
And most experts think that suicide is a form of mental illness.
Yeah. I'd like to say yes. I'm sure a large number of suicides are due to mental illness. I don't know the statistics on that and what you consider to be mental illness.
Right.
Something like depression, certainly severe depression can be mental illness. Mm-hmm. And the demographic that you mentioned, we'll talk about some younger people later on. The demographic you mentioned, men 75 or over. It's a little bit unusual, I think. The average person reads that and says, I never thought of these old guys killing themselves. And I think the reason might be that a lot of men feel that they're worthless. You reach a certain point in your life, and you've raised your family. Maybe your spouse has died, and you're alone. And you're saying to yourself, where do I fit in? And you know what happens, BC? When you get old like you, I mean, stuff happens. You mean the body begins to break down, and all of a sudden you say to yourself, why am I living like this? I can't do anything. I don't feel good. I'm lonely. Why don't I just kill myself? And I think that that is one of the main reasons why you have that demographic. Now remember, people living into their 70s and 80s now, that's a fairly new phenomenon.
Yeah.
People didn't always live that long. And so there are a lot more things that a person has to cope with. As I said, as you get older, things begin to happen. And I think there's some things that go through people's mind. Not only am I lonely, not only am I living with pain all the time, but something else is going on, and that something else is, what purpose do I have?
Well, and you make another point, and that is that through the marvels of modern medicine, people stay alive a lot longer.
Right.
But often your quality of life is not that great.
Right.
And if you go back a generation, whatever that ailment is would have killed the person.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So now they're living with, whether it's extreme pain or immobility or whatever the case may be, quality of life diminishes considerably.
Sure. And I think, too, that people see that, and they see a lot of their friends immobilized. They might be in a wheelchair. They may be at a nursing home. And you have a lot of people say, I don't want to live that way.
Right.
You know, I'd rather be dead than to live like that. And so some of them say, well, I'm going to take that option. I'm going to kill myself.
And that leads to the issue of euthanasia. You know, we've talked about this on previous programs. Canada is all in on euthanasia.
Right.
In the U.S., several states have legalized it. I don't know. I mean, we know that it's a sin. At least Catholics believe it's a sin to take one's own life. And that should be a huge factor in anybody making that decision. But that aside, 50,000 people killed themselves last year, or in 2022.
Right. And you would think that they would have some kind of an outreach, that they can go to a mental health facility, go to their own doctor and say, hey, doc, could you give me something? I'm kind of down in the dumps. I'm contemplating suicide. That there would be some form of intervention. Now, there's something else about men, right? We don't like to ask for help.
Right.
And we keep quiet about the things that are hurting us, that are bothering us. So without that social network, let me say this, folks. Men, again, the wives seem to have all the social networking. Mm-hmm. And a lot of men say to me, once my wife died, I've lost all my outreach, all my connections, all of my friends. Nobody ever calls me. But then you have to ask them the question, do you ever call anybody? And the answer is usually, no, I'm by myself now. They have their own life, I don't feel like telling them how sad I am.
I'm a fifth wheel.
Right. Yeah.
But, Father, one of the things that we can all do to alleviate that possibility is to have some sort of a hobby or involvement, whether that's golf or playing poker or whatever it is you want to do, delivering meals with Meals on Wheels. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are opportunities for people to do all kinds of different things that keep them in the social mainstream. Unfortunately, people give up.
They do. And, we talked about this a couple of shows ago, hope. And a lot of people who reach that stage in their life have given up hope. And there is no light in their life. I'm going to, go to some traditional ways of giving somebody a purpose to live. Traditional way of giving somebody a purpose to live is certainly if you have grandchildren, you can enjoy grandchildren. You can even enjoy your children. That means if you're on good terms with them, I mean, that's also a problem sometimes. You can get involved in community activities if you're up to it, physically. If you're up to it, that's part of it too. Being able to do things, certainly being part of a church, synagogue, mosque, wherever you worship, to get involved with the activities that take place amongst the senior citizens clubs. Some of you say, "Well, I can't get out. I'm bound to a wheelchair. I have an aide come in," or something like that. Well, learn how to use Zoom. I mean, try to connect somehow. See, we're social animals. Mm-hmm. We need other people, and other people there are other people that are just as lonely as you are. There are a lot of other people that are just as sick as you are. I had a lady in my parish many years ago. She was just a wonderful, wonderful woman. Her name was Tritty. And Tritty, at a very young age, contracted cancer. Mm. And the cancer was literally killing her. I think she lasted about a year and a half after diagnosis. But what she did, because she couldn't get out, she sent out her phone number. In those days, you didn't have social media, so she put in the parish bulletin. If you need to talk to somebody about anything, please give me a call. And her phone was ringing all day. And I really think that this woman is a saint. I mean, she had some ministry from just sitting in her living room talking to people on the phone. And it made a big difference in the life of people. They had a friend to call, to talk to, that they knew each other at least by phone. Today, I mean, with the Zoom and all that stuff, I mean, you can even see the person. So these are certain things that you can do. But there's also medication. And, folks, a lot of us, we don't want to take any medication. If you need it, take it. That's what, the medicine is there for. You have doctors that are there for. They give you an antidepressant, anti-anxiety medicine, doctors that can help you maybe alleviate the pain management. These things are extremely important. So are there, psychological problems? Yeah. Sometimes it's chemical. They oftentimes can be fixed, right? With the right physician, the right diagnosis. Is loneliness a problem? Sure it is. But you don't have to be lonely. You can reach out. I said church organizations, calling people up. Remember that commercial on reach out and touch someone?
Yeah, sure. AT&T.
AT&T. And that's one of the things that we can do, especially these days. You know, the media is so prevalent. I mean, it's at your fingertips.
Yeah.
That, you know, you could call somebody, you know, in Czechoslovakia and have it right next to you. You know, Czechoslovakia doesn't exist anymore. Call the Czech Republic,
Czech
folks.
Republic,
okay, but you know what I mean. And therefore, what you can do is begin to build a community around yourself. Now, when we come back, I'm going to talk about the moral implications of suicide. Okay?
We'll be back right after this. Action for Life is proud to sponsor a conversation with Father Orsi. Action for Life is an all-volunteer, pro-life, interfaith ministry that's focused on the sanctity of life from conception to natural death. In addition to sponsoring this TV program, Action for Life provides financial support and life assistance to any woman who wishes to carry her baby to term in anticipation of an adoption. Action for Life also provides financial assistance to a variety of pro-life organizations, including maternity homes, pregnancy resource centers, anti-human trafficking agencies, and sidewalk advocates, but to name a few. Please consider making a donation so that we can continue in the fight to save preborn babies. You can donate online at actionforlife.org. Thank you and God bless.
Hey gang, I know a lot of you sometimes can't watch all of our episodes of Action for Life. However, we have a solution for that. All you have to do is go to YouTube and search for Action for Life Florida. And you can catch up on all the shows, and guess what? Extra added bonus, you get to hear my weekly homily. So, YouTube and you make a fine couple.
Welcome back to A Conversation with Father Orsi. I'm B.C. Cloutier. Father, before the break, we were talking about, we're talking about suicide, talking about euthanasia, talking about loneliness, and I think an important point you make. We spoke a little bit about hope, and hope addresses the previous three issues.
Right. Yeah. I think that anyone who is a God-fearing person, anyone that is a Bible-based person, is someone who would not consider or perform a suicidal act.
Right, sure.
Because those passages in the Bible are just filled with hope, even in the most terrible, depressing situations.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I realize that suicide is a sin, but isn't it a mortal sin that
Sure it is.
could send you to hell?
Sure it is. If you're in full control of your faculties, certainly it is a sin, a mortal sin, that could send you to hell. Now, what do we mean by full control of one's faculties? That one is not mentally disturbed. That one is unable to be reasonable. That one is unable to see a way out of the darkness that they are in, right? What do you do in those cases? What do you have to look at? What you have to look at is, did the person appear to be stable? Appear to be stable. Now, you could meet somebody and say, I just talked to him yesterday, and we had a great conversation. He was joking around, and then you find out, a couple of days later, he went home and he hanged himself. Right? Now, so we can't judge. It's very difficult to judge, somebody else's heart and brain and motives. But suppose somebody goes through a great deal of planning their suicide. It would seem that they were at least rational enough to make preparations to kill themselves. Let me just give you an example. There's a book I read a number of years ago when I was at law school about a Judge Friendly up in New York, a brilliant legal scholar. As a matter of fact, Justice John Roberts clerked for him, and his rulings, his jurisprudence is still looked upon today as some very, very special guidance for judges. Now, what came out at the end of the book, which was very, very sad as I read it, is that he committed suicide. But he plotted every step of it. In other words, he knew exactly what he was doing where to order the medication, the poison, how to take it, how to administer it. It was very, very well planned. So it would seem that he was a very rational man. I don't recall him being described as a man of faith. I don't recall that. But I think if somebody shows that I had enough brains to put this thing together and then to leave a note explaining why you did it, it would seem from my point of view as a human being, not as God's, that's different turf, that that person acted in a very, very rational way, and that person did commit, at least objectively speaking, a mortal sin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, in the Catholic Church, there was one time when we refused to bury suicides. No?
Really?
Oh, yeah. Because they took their own life, killing the image and likeness of God, just like an abortion, okay?
Yeah.
Except it's self-inflicted. So we refused to bury a suicide. However, after the Second Vatican Council, we began to see things a little bit differently. Certainly, in the earlier part of our century, there were, the past century, there were great strides made in psychology.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And people began to say, maybe there is a mental problem here that forced this person to do that. I always pray that that's the case, that the person was not in full possession of themselves. But can there be people, and it seems like we talked about this before, certain places in our own Western Hemisphere, Canada, where you can decide I want to end my life, and that they can deliver the drugs to you, right. And you could go through, and this happens in the Netherlands too, you can go through a counseling procedure. Are you sure you want to do this? The doctor questions you, the nurse questions you, you have some time to think about it. It certainly seems that you are in your right mind, that you had sufficient guidance, and that you just literally gave up hope. Right. You gave up hope, and you didn't see life as worth living. And obviously, if God is the author of life, only He can take life. And if we take our own life, then we're saying that I don't care about God, or I don't believe in God. It would be, I would say, pretty safe to say that an atheist might be someone who's going to say, what difference does it make? I'm 75, I'm 80, I've had enough.
Right.
I mean, sometimes I say to myself, I had enough, but I would never go that far.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's euthanasia and abortion are very similar in one regard, and that is that we as a people have become callous to death,
right.
To taking a life, whether it's the life of an unborn baby or the life of someone who is either infirm or old or right. For whatever reason. It's morally wrong, and yet a lot of people don't see it that way.
Right, right. I think, when I see things at the other end of the spectrum too, where people do care a tremendous amount about life, willing to go to extraordinary means to preserve it. In the hospitals, I see doctors and nurses work so hard to preserve a life, even of a senior citizen or someone who is maybe terminally ill, but they'll go to extremes to save this person's life. Now, of course, there comes a time when care might be futile, but then the doctors with the family, they would have to make the final decision right. As to whether or not you are going to continue the extraordinary means used, like a respirator, a feeding tube.
Well, here's another question, and this is a theological question, I guess, and that is, if someone who is terminally ill chooses to not prolong their life, mm-hmm. just says, I'm going to let God do whatever God is going to do.
Right.
There's no sin in that, is there?
No. There are instances where you simply say, let nature take its course. Right. We call it comfort measures only. And that way the person can say, I don't want to continue living like this. And
These would be do not resuscitate orders.
Right, yeah, DNR we call it. Taking off a respirator, or even the refusal of a feeding tube. Somebody might be at end-stage cancer, and the hospital, the doctors might ask, "Do you want a feeding tube put in?" Some say yes. Some say, I want to live to the last minute, although it's a painful last minute. But the person could say, "No, I don't want the respirator. That's extraordinary. I'm at the end of my life. I don't want to have a feeding tube put in, and therefore I just want to go to Jesus." And a lot of times hospice will do a lot of good work insofar as helping people to die peacefully and painlessly without going through the extraordinary means of surgeries, needless surgeries, or surgeries that are going to do absolutely no good except prolong the pain. At the end of life, even people can stop taking medications, saying, just let me go. Just let me die peacefully.
We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to a conversation with Father Orsi. I'm B.C. Cloutier. Father, we've been talking a lot about older people and suicide and or euthanasia. There's a real problem in the world today, and certainly in America, with teenage suicide and even preteen suicide.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Let's talk about why would a young person want to end their lives. In some ways, it's similar to older people, too. They're depressed, right? Also, the case may be that they have been encouraged to commit suicide.
There's a case in Massachusetts, right, where a young woman said to her boyfriend, "Go ahead, kill yourself."
Right.
He did, and she was prosecuted.
Yeah. But today, especially with the social media, people going online, they can find groups that promote suicide, or they meeting people online that tell them, you're worthless. They get into some sorts of bullying, and
that's a huge problem with social media with teens.
Yeah, why do you want to live? You're a waste. You're ugly. You're fat. Whatever the case may be. Nobody understands you because you're a boy, but you really are a girl, and you should just kill yourself. And a lot of times, suicide is also an act of anger or revenge. Okay, I'll show you. I'm not getting along with my parents. I'll show them. I'm having a tough time in school, and I'm going to show them. And that way people will really feel badly when I die. So there is a number of cases, unfortunately, of young people who have taken their own lives, guided by the internet, bullied by classmates, or some kids who have just isolated themselves so much that nobody can get through to them because they don't make themselves available anymore. You see this with the killers, these people that decide to get a gun and go shoot people up in the school. I mean, what a self-image do they have?
Right.
Basically, I hate you, and I hope I get killed the same time because I hate me, and I want to take out my revenge and anger on society, on my classmates, and I want people to feel badly.
I think video games are very dangerous at allowing young people to get to that place where they get further and further and further engrossed in the game, And they are socializing often with other people around the world.
Yeah.
But they don't socialize with anyone in their immediate circle.
Right.
It's
right. So again, it's that loneliness, that hopelessness, and anger. And we hear a lot today about young people being very angry. They're angry, and I don't know if parents are paying enough attention to that. That they have to take time to talk to the kids and find out, what's going on in their lives. One of the things that is a very simple one, a family meal.
Yeah.
Sit around the table at night, and that's where you have the conversation. What happened today in school? You look upset. Is something wrong? How'd you do on your grades? And those are things that will at least engender some kind of a back and forth, and to help the young person to say, I have a problem, and to realize somebody cares, and that there is hope out there. A lot of schools have, guidance counselors, and those people are there as resources to help a child to get over these negative feelings.
Father, you bring up a point. Dinner together. And yet, in many households, that doesn't occur on a regular basis.
No.
People are busy and, I ordered a pizza for you. You're
Right.
all, and I've been guilty of that as a parent, certainly. But you realize after the fact that just a simple meal together
Right.
can bring a family close and keep kids away from craziness.
Yeah. Just to wrap up, we talked earlier about, old men have a very high suicide rate. Wouldn't it be a great idea if somebody took it upon themselves, some church or some organization? I'm not just going to drop off the Meals on Wheels. I'm going to sit down and have dinner with the guy.
Great idea.
Yeah. So that's a suggestion, folks. It's a tough topic. I know we don't like to talk about it, but hey, it's real.
Yeah. Yes. And getting more real by the day.
Yeah.
Sometime we can talk more about fentanyl. That is just a terrible, terrible drug. It A, allows people to commit suicide, and B, allows people to inadvertently kill themselves.
Right.
It's this is not a good time.
No, it's not.
And for those of you who are taking drugs that you buy on the street, please don't do it anymore, because you don't know what the dealers are lacing this stuff with.
That is the truth, and it is horrendous. It's painful for the families to walk in on a young person, up to maybe 45 years old, and find them dead. And it's just for a gram, the tiniest, biggest piece of salt could kill them with the fentanyl.
Yep. Well, that wraps it up for another week of a conversation with Father Orsi. Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again next week, same time, same place. Until then, have a great week and God bless.